If you want to photograph wildlife in Africa, one of the most powerful skills you can master is shooting in dusty conditions. In the dry season, dust isn't just a challenge, it's an opportunity to add mood, atmosphere, and drama to your images. In this video, I'll share my best tips for photographing wildlife in dusty conditions so you can use it to your advantage. And stick around because I'll also show you a neat editing trick I use with backlit dust images to create something visually powerful. Sunsets in Africa are some of the most iconic images you can capture, but they're also some of the hardest to expose correctly. When the sky is dusty, the blue spectrum of light is cut away, which creates those incredibly strong, warm tones at sunset. It looks amazing, but the sun itself is insanely bright. For scenes like this, I switch to full manual exposure. You'll never capture detail in the sun, so instead, focus on finding a balance between the landscape and the sky. Remember, it's much easier to recover shadow detail than blown highlights, so I bias my exposure towards protecting the bright areas. Here's the histogram for the raw file. Notice I've got blown highlights and clipped blacks. That's the reality of a scene like this, and the trick is simply to find the best balance between darks and lights using the histogram to guide you. Dust doesn't just add drama, it also helps simplify a scene by removing distractions. In the dry season, animals often kick up dust that softens and reduces background detail, and I use this to isolate my subject. A simple layer of dust behind an animal can separate it from messy bushes or distracting elements, almost like having a natural backdrop. I'll often choose a slightly wider aperture to enhance that separation even more. Have a look at these two examples and notice how the dusty image on the right creates a much more aesthetically pleasing result. The dust transforms the photo into a cleaner, more powerful image where all the attention goes straight to the subject, with the dust and light laying the foundation for the mood. Photographing wildlife in Africa is an unforgettable experience, and my photographic safaris are built to help you capture it at its best. I'll show you how to make the most of the light, work with the conditions, and embrace the unique drama of Africa so you don't just take pictures, you create images that carry the story and emotion of being there. You can learn more about joining me on safari through the link below. When you're photographing in dusty conditions, try to frame your image so the entire scene is covered in dust. If parts of the frame are clear while others are filled with haze, it breaks the mood and takes away from the drama. Here's an example of a raw file. Notice how the areas without dust feel distracting and weaken the impact of the moment. By cropping those out and focusing only on the area filled with dust, the final image becomes much stronger with all the magic and atmosphere preserved. One quick thing about shooting in the dry season, the dust isn't just in your photos, it gets into your gear too. I never change lenses on a safari vehicle because I don't want dust inside the camera body and on the sensor. I keep my Nikon 180-600 permanently on my Z8 and a wider lens on a second body. I don't worry too much about dust on the outside of the gear, as that can easily be removed with a cloth or a brush. Dust isn't only about atmosphere, it also conveys struggle and adds a dramatic element to a scene. In many ways, dust becomes part of the story. Whether it's zebra battling for dominance, buffalo fighting, or a herd of wildebeest on the move, the clouds of dust add intensity and drama that instantly tells a stronger story. I try to anticipate those moments and use the dust not just as a visual effect, but as a storytelling element that highlights the struggle for survival, particularly in the dry season. When you use dust this way, your photos carry more emotion and make the viewer feel the energy of the moment. When you're photographing in dusty conditions, autofocus can really struggle. The haze and low contrast often confuse subject tracking, so I don't always rely on it. Instead, I'll switch to single point autofocus and place the focus point on an area of strong contrast, like the edge of an animal's body or the outline of a head against the dust. This gives the camera something clear to lock onto and you'll get much sharper, more reliable results than if you let the autofocus system hunt through the haze. Golden light and dust are a magical combination that can transform a photo. When the sun is low, dust catches the light and makes the entire scene glow with atmosphere. The best way to maximize this effect is to position yourself for backlight, with the sun behind the dust and your subject in front. This gives the strongest glow, turning ordinary movement, like animals walking through the dust, into something visually powerful and dramatic. Whenever I see dust in the air during golden hour, I always look for ways to shoot directly into the light, because that's when the glow is at its most striking. Shooting into the light with dust creates that beautiful glowing atmosphere, but you can push it even further in editing to make the scene stand out even more. In Lightroom, I start by selecting the subject and slightly cooling it down, which helps create more color contrast against that warm glow. Then I invert that selection and warm up the background, so the dust and golden light look even more dramatic. It's a really simple adjustment, but it instantly gives your backlight dust images a much stronger visual impact. Dust is just one factor I consider when capturing wildlife in Africa. If you'd like to see more, I've got a behind-the-scenes video from Kruger National Park showing you how I capture my photos. You can watch it here next.